Welcome to Working with Function Components, Props and Event Handling. After watching this video, you will be able to explain the value of props and default props in components, summarize how to use props to pass data between components, describe props principles, discuss how events work in conjunction with props. In function components, properties are referred to as props. Primarily, props allow you to pass data from one component to another. Essentially, a prop works similarly to an object. A prop stores the attributes of a component and allows you to pass these attributes from a parent component to its child. However, you should note that you cannot change these attributes. Props are immutable, meaning the data is read-only, and you cannot change them within a child component. In this example, this app component functions as the primary component of the project. Inside the app function component, data gets passed into a child component named employee data. The app's return statement assigns the employee data component's name attribute to John. Note that these examples do not include import or export statements. Now, examine the employee data component, shown here. You can see the props parameter passed into the component. You could provide any object name instead of props, but conventionally, you should use props to improve readability. Inside the H1 element within the return statement, you use the name with the dot operator. The props object contains all the properties passed to a component. When you use a component and pass it an attribute, such as name equals John, that attribute becomes a property of the props object within the component. You can also pass the data in other formats as well. In this example, change the app component's return statement. Notice that in this version, you declare a const named employee ID and assign the value 111. You can pass this prop dynamically to the employee data component using curly braces. Also, the key department ID prop is set to the static value 567 directly in the return statement. To do this, use curly braces around the 567 prop value. The structure discussed establishes the foundation for rendering UI elements and passing data within the React application. You can then access these details using the props object and render these attributes on the front end using the dot operator. You can define default values for a component's props. If the parent component does not provide a value for a particular prop, its child component will use the default value specified in the child component's default props object. This statement appears immediately before the export statement. The default value of the employee data component ensures consistent rendering even if you do not explicitly provide these values in the parent component. In this case, if the parent component does not pass in the det_name attribute, the component supplies the default value, human resources, to the department name prop. The principles behind the usefulness of props and function components include reusability, unidirectional data flow, customization, and composition. Let's discuss each of these. Regarding reusability, passing different props allows you to create variations of the same component without duplicating code. You can customize the behavior and appearance of your components based on different conditions or data. The unidirectional flow of data makes it easy to see how data gets passed and updated throughout your application, enabling errors to be spotted easily. Props enable customization. You can write code that is simple yet robust. You can use the same components, but the props provide flexibility. Props facilitate component composition throughout communication among these simpler components to build complex UIs. Let's also consider using event handling with props as an example. In this app example, we pass an attribute named increase with a value of $10,000. In this component named props, the useState hook manages the state of the showIncrease value. Showing an increase determines whether or not to display the annual salary increase information. Hooks and states are important parts of React function components. Here's how the useState hook and the click event work in the component. The useState hook creates state variables. In this case, the showIncrease state variable holds a Boolean value indicating whether the app should display the annual salary increase data. When the user selects the Display Annual Salary Increase button, it triggers an arrow function defined within the onClick event handler. Call the setShowIncrease true inside this arrow function. This function sets the state of showIncrease to be true, indicating that the UI should display the annual salary increase. The component uses the conditional double AND expression for conditional rendering. If show increase is true, the yearly increase information displays within a div element. Otherwise, the component does not display this value. This image shows the output of this code. You can see that when the show increase Boolean value is false, the increase amount is not displayed. When the user clicks the button label changes, and the UI displays the value of the increase attribute. In this video, you learned a prop stores the attributes of a component and allows you to pass these attributes from parent to child. You pass a props object as a parameter into a component. Define the data using the dot operator in the format props dot attribute name. Props principles include reusability, unidirectional data flow, customization, and composition. You can use the use state hook in conjunction with an event to control a child component.